All right, hello everyone. This is Mr. Petrella here. I'm going to talk through a quick example that's going to hopefully help to explain the difference between a genotypic ratio and a phenotypic ratio for you guys. Something or some type of question will be seen on the upcoming quiz involving genotype versus phenotype, so hopefully this will add a little bit of clarity. So, our question, it says, in pea plants, tall is dominant to short. So as we know, I'm always going to place my dominant trait as a capital letter, so that'll be capital T, and my short is going to be a lowercase t. That's my recessive gene. So the question asks, if two heterozygous plants are crossbred, what is the resulting genotype and phenotype? All right, immediately I know right here, two heterozygous, well, if I'm talking about my alleles, heterozygous is going to be a capital T and a lowercase t. So I put one side of my parents up on the top and the other side of my parents on the side. So if they're both heterozygous, they're both going to have the same genotype, which is going to be big T, little t for the father, and big T, little t for the mother. Now I'm just going to quickly go through and I am going to actually work through this Punnett square with you. So in this first square in the top left here, I cross big T and big T. Then in the next square, I'm going to have big T, little t. And again, in that third lower square, it'll be big T, little t. And then lastly, I have little t, little t. So these are genotypes. There are three different genotypes that you can see in this Punnett square. The first genotype is going to be big T, big T. That's my first genotype here. And I'm going to look in this square. I have one big T, big T. The next possible genotype is going to be big T, little t. Now I have two big T, little t's in this Punnett square. And then my last possible genotype is going to be little t, which in this case, in this Punnett square, I have 1. So when I'm writing out my genotypic ratio, that is going to be 1 to 2 to 1. And that's how I figure out my genotypic ratio for that F1 offspring, that first progeny from those two parents. Now, the phenotypic ratio is going to be just slightly different here. Remember, my phenotype is always telling me what shows up or what is actually going to appear. So if I'm talking a little bit about my phenotypic ratio, I have to understand which of my traits is dominant and which of my traits is recessive. Now, I know that tall is dominant to short. If I'm looking at my first genotype, the big T, this is going to show in a physical appearance as a dominant trait. So this is going to be tall. Now looking at my second genotype, big T, little t, and knowing still full well that tall is always dominant to short, well, since I have this big T right here in my second genotype, that is going to show outward physically as also tall. The only way that I'm going to have a short pea plant is if I have this third scenario here, which is two little t's, homozygous recessive. So in this case, I have a short pea plant. And then we're talking about phenotypic ratio, the difference between my phenotypic versus my genotypic, is that in my phenotypic ratio, I'm comparing what's outwardly going to happen, what's actually going to show that physical characteristic. So in this case, I have 3 that are going to show as tall and 1 that is going to show as short. So my phenotypic ratio is going to be 3 to 1, 3 tall to 1 short. Now, if you're asked ever about a question in terms of percentage, because you might be asked that as well, what percent of the pea plants are going to be tall? Well, 3 of the 4 possible options here are going to be tall, which means 75% are going to be tall. And then 1 out of the 4 is going to be short, which means that's a percentage of 25% short. So hopefully that's a good explanation about the difference between a genotypic ratio versus a phenotypic ratio. Remember, my genotype is what I'm seeing underneath. What are those 2 alleles telling me? Whereas my phenotypic ratio, or my phenotype, is telling me what am I seeing outwardly, physically. All right, I hope that helps clarify things and the differences between genotype versus phenotype in Mendelian genetics. Take care.